Hey everybody, it's your boy Wayne here bringing you a weekly wheel and other options update. Last month when things left off, I was at $31,308 and it was an eye-opener for me because I realized that I'm not going to be able to beat how much I made in 2022. Speaking of 2022, I began watching Brad Finn's content on YouTube and it was an absolute eye-opener, game changer for me being able to generate cash flow. And so since watching his content, since beginning my options journey, I had a pretty fantastic 2022. But cut to this year, why have I not been able to exceed the amount of money that I made last year? Let me just say this, it does not matter how good you are at selling options. You are never going to be able to be as good to compete with things like market conditions, the overall financial climate, and of course, the volatility of the stocks that you're selling options against. So that's been the biggest lesson that I've learned here this past year. It does not matter what you've made the previous year. It does not matter how good you think you are at selling options. You're never going to be able to compete with those three variables. But nonetheless, I did have a fantastic month. And let's go ahead and jump right into it. When things left off, I was at a total of $31,308. And if we now go to the updated figure, it has jumped up pretty considerably, almost $5,500. That's how much I made in premium, baby, this past month. Now, I want to go back here to the old spreadsheet from last month. Take a look here at everything underneath the covered calls column. And you're going to see here that the only month in which I truly lost money was in the month of January. Now, again, I wouldn't look at January and say, oh my goodness, he lost $27,000. It's really important to zoom out and look at the year-to-date total. That year-to-date total was $11,444. But if we now look at what I've made year-to-date since the last month, I have jumped up to $13,781. But we certainly see a lot of months now that are in the negative. So what gives, right? How did we go from just 1 month, which was January, being in the negative, to now March, April, May, June? Ultimately, I finished out those months in the negative. Remember, you have to zoom out. You just can't look at 1 month. But it comes down to rolling my positions. In a lot of my covered calls, I'm going to be honest with you, I sold below my cost basis. And what that means is, and we'll go ahead and just show you the first example with Meta. The current share price of Meta today is $328. I own 100 shares and my cost basis is $242. So in reality, it would stand to make sense if I'm going to sell a covered call, I had better not do it below the strike price of $243, because if I do, I'm going to lose money on that overall contract. But that's what I did. I did sell a covered call below my cost basis. And in doing so, I ran the risk of those 100 shares being called away from me. So let's go ahead and break down here a recent roll. Now, when you roll a position, you are hoping to roll up and roll out for a better strike price, a better date, and more importantly, you're hoping to do so to earn net positive premium. Now, on this transaction, I did earn net positive premium for $403, but I want to show you here the mistake that I made. Specifically, I had a covered call in which the strike price was $210. So this is the problem. If those shares of Meta are called away, that person's going to own 100 of my shares for $210, even though I paid $242 per share. So this is also the advice I would give you. Never sell below your cost basis. I wish I could tell you that I can take my own advice. I am guilty this year of not doing this, but I had to make a move, because if this contract were to expire on 12/15 and obviously the share price of Meta is still above 210, then these shares were going to be called away from me. So I did what's called a roll, and I was able to take that existing contract, buy to close at a loss, and then sell to open a new contract. And yes, I was able to get a better strike price. Now, some of you may look at this and say, holy heck, Wayne, you're still significantly below the current share price, right? Like, yeah, your contract now says that those shares can be called away at a price of $240, but the cost of Meta is clearly $328. So don't you run the risk of those shares being called away? Aren't you still going to incur maybe not as much as a loss as you were before? And the answer is yes. But because the person who bought that contract, right, because they paid such a significant amount, which means I earned the net positive premium of the difference of me buying to close and selling to open. They're essentially still on the hook for this $9,200 premium that they had to pay to enter that contract. So there is some math involved where I do not necessarily think that this person is going to immediately exercise on this contract. Meta would have to go up significantly more before I run the risk of those shares being called away. But that's just one example of a transaction that reflects as to why, let's say, April now shows a loss of $11,931. That's because when you roll a contract in my spreadsheet, I will always reflect the loss as to when the contract was originally open. Again, you just need to look at the total amount of premium earned for the entire year, not just focus on 1 month. That's why the title of this video doesn't say, holy smokes, I made $21,000 so far in November of 2023. Well, it doesn't really tell an accurate story. And in fact, when I made $29,000 in October, in reality, there is a significant amount of that money that is going to be factored in as a loss from previous months. But here's what it comes down to. Last month, I was sitting at a total of $31,308. Today, I'm at $36,764. Now, not all of that $5,500 that I made in the month in premium came from covered calls. I have also been able to capitalize on a lot of earnings this past month. October, November was very good to me because, again, I have been able to capitalize on some of those key earning dates. Let's go ahead and take Celsius, for example, which is this contract right here. On November 3rd, I entered a contract in which I'm saying, listen, I don't think that Celsius is going to go below $149 a share. Now, somebody else on the other end of that contract fully believes that Celsius is going to dive way below $149. And so for that, they ponied up $300. They paid me essentially $300 to enter that contract. And the rules are rather simple. If by November 10th, the cost of Celsius does not go below 149, then that means that contract's going to expire worthless and I'm going to be able to keep all or nearly all of my premium. So guess what? Celsius had earnings that week. That's why we saw such elevated premium to begin with. And Celsius did well on their earnings and of course did not go below that 149 strike. So I was able to buy to close early for $10, essentially making $290 in premium. Now, as I continued to watch Celsius slowly climb up, I actually entered another contract right after I bought to close this one. And you will see here line item 371. This time I decided to enter a contract in which I'm saying I don't think that Celsius is going to fall below 165. Now, the person at the other end of that contract, they believed that it was, and so they were willing to pay $125. Again, Celsius did not dip below that 165. It never even came close. And so I was able to yet again buy to close early, and I locked in $115 of premium for this contract. If we add it up to the second contract that I wrote in the same week, that's a total of $400 in premium that I earned just from Celsius, just by being willing to sell an option against that stock, given that it was earnings week. So there you have it. That's all the premium that I've earned year to date so far in 2023. If I were to give you an educated guess, I do think that I'm going to be able to finish out the year at or about $40,000 in premium. And just imagine what you could do with that premium. Everything from pay bills, pay taxes, or more importantly, invest that money in other quality stocks. And that is something that I certainly did this past year when my wife and I decided to invest in our Roth IRA accounts. So more to come on some option premium here. I'll give it a few weeks. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week. Thanks for tuning in. Do me a favor. If you like this content, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I hope you guys are subscribing because we got some great content coming your way. And of course, we'll see you on the next one.